reflecting on Mother Teresa's and Phoebe's journeys leads me to share the latest leg of my own journey. So this past week, I spent Wednesday through Saturday at my parents' condo in Morristown, New Jersey. From here in Drexel Hill, it would be about 2.5 hours north. 4 days, it was a whirlwind between doctor's appointments. My parents are moving from a 2,000 square foot, 3-level condo into a senior living 1-floor apartment. And at 91 and 96, their children, I am one of the 6 children, 5 living, for 8 years have been lobbying for this. So we are delighted. It's just that they've kind of gone beyond the best time to enter. So there's some feebleness, and so there's a lot of work being done to expedite this move quickly. And luckily, I have a sister in Massachusetts who arrived last night to spend a few days. When I got there Wednesday, my sister from Washington had been there. My brother's coming in from California. He'll be there Tuesday. My other brother from New York on Monday. So it's just lots to do. And their emotional states they're stunned that all this has happened in a week. So, we carry all that energy with us. I know that many of you have lived through this experience with your own parents and know it. It's just that we can know it intellectually, and going through it it takes a physical toll. So I'm hoping I can stand up and be with you today. There hasn't been a lot of sleeping going on, but if anyone's gone through this, you need the TB test, and then you go back 2 days later to get the implant looked at, and then you go back a week later for the other one. And when there's 2 people and they don't have doctor's appointments at the same time, then it doubles the whole thing. And when it's kind of hard to get people in and out of it, so you get the background. But the time was filled with priceless moments, and I'm just going to share a few of them. My parents never thought they were old. Like when we toured facilities 7 or 8 years ago, they would say to me, there are a lot of old people living there. They're 91 and 96 now, so we can do the math. So at one point, we got in the car, and my mother said to me, Kathleen, I have to tell you, your father and I we just became old almost overnight. So the awareness, they now have reached the awareness that they're old and need, yay. But so we went out shopping for rollators, right? And with the insurance, they have Walker on wheels for those who haven't been on this journey. Their insurance covers 80% of the cost if you buy it from one of 2 providers, unless you've already exceeded your out of network pocket deductible of $2,000, which they had not. So I thought, oh, that's good. So we went to a pharmacy that had them, and I realized I knew more than the guy in the pharmacy about rollators, having done a bit of research. So, but at least they got the feel of what it would be like to work it, and they're on board. But my mother had her appointment with her primary. My father had not. At that appointment, the doctor gives you a prescription because you need the prescription to get the break. So, but we have to go back to that doctor's to look at my mother's TB implant, and that was fine, except my dad was with us because, we're in the car together, and his appointment's next Tuesday. And so I'm explaining to them nicely, picture this, how my dad's here and he's 96 and we're going rollator shopping, and I'd really love for the doctor to give me a prescription for him as well, so that, and I thought we could do it all at the pharmacy and they'd have them in stock. But anyway, so that person had to check with someone else, and the doctor was with a patient, Anyway, my mother's like, Kathleen, don't push so hard. Don't push so hard. So I don't know what that means. So, so basically, they look at my mother's arm and she's fine with the TB. And then the nurse comes back and says, Kathleen, the doctor can write a prescription, but she's with patients. Can you come back between 4 and 4:30? And I said, yes, I'll be happy to come back, because we were going the next day. So my mother's like, I can't believe you. I can't believe you. You get what you asked for. Okay. So anyway, so there were some little moments like that that they appreciate my style, even though it's different than theirs. A good lesson for all of us. Their condo went on the market on Friday. 4 people came through yesterday. The open house is today. Then there's a lot of effort to reduce the clutter, right? 30 years of living in one place, there's a lot of stuff. Turning on lights on all 3 levels, that takes about 15 minutes for me, much longer for them. And then we use the strategy of packing their car in the garage and locking it with all those things that you don't want hanging around. The toaster oven, the little grill, the extra leaf from the table, the garbage can, the computer, right? So it's all good. Now, one thing that happened as we're doing this, I did observe. I said, Mom, this message is coming from your daughter, the priest. You know how they always say, reduce the number of pictures in a house? We have tons of pictures. And the realtor said, you know, just reduce it a little. So we still have pictures, a lot of pictures of the family. But there's also a predominance of Catholic symbols. You know, the Blessed Mother statue, the 2-foot crucifix over their bed, and crucifixes in every room, rosaries on every level. So I'm like, so I put the rosary behind the pillow. I said, Mom, we're just trying to give people coming in an experience that they're not offended. I'm offended by your suggestion. I'm like, okay, but we have too many crucifixes. There's never too many. So, and then she would say, did you turn that crucifix around? I said, Mom, I was putting something on the bookcase and it just must have moved. And so we had some very interesting casual dialogue, but it was funny. As I'm texting my siblings saying, they don't understand the idea of staging a house. But anyway, so they realize they're old. They're willing to let their children help. This is a great godsend, and we're grateful for it. But my final story, coming home last night, I was leaving around 3:30 to come home, you know, to prepare for this liturgy. And I had some of the stuff done, but I hadn't printed the worship sheets or stuff. And as we drove back from the ShopRite where we had gone for the last 2 showings to be out of the house, the sky darkened, and then the thunder and the lightning and that storm blew through. And I thought, I'm crazy to drive in this. I'm going to wait until it passes. So I decided to stick around until 5:15, but then it became 7. So I was a little later departing, and my sister arrived in the meantime. We had a chance to kind of get here's what you got to do, here's how it works, here's what they'll do, here's what you do, pay attention. And so we did the little orientation. I got in the car. I thought I had everything. My car is packed with, you know, clothes for mayor, and a million other things. Anybody want, you know, frying pans and I think 1 or 2, what other things you make pie crust with? Rolling pins. We've got a quick, anyway, lots of stuff. But we're driving and I'm about 15, 20 minutes south on 287. And I call Stan and I'm like, I'm coming home. And I ended up staying and having dinner with my parents before leaving and my sister. So we're driving along and I'm like, I just have to get some stuff done tonight when I get home. And then in discussion, I realized my backpack with my computer was in the closet next to the garage where I had put it, thinking it's just got to get it out of the way for the 12:30 showing and the 2:45 showing and the 3:15 showing. And I forgot to put it in my car. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm turning around. And so I turned around and I called my sister, and who I knew was sitting there. And she's like, yeah, we're just having tea. I said, okay, don't be alarmed. I want to tell you, I'm coming home to get my computer. And she's like, oh, all right, I can meet you. Tell me where to meet you. So I said, all right, I'll text it to you when I figure it out. So I hung up and I turned around and I thought, where am I? And so I, found a place about 10 miles from them and 10 miles from where I was. And she met me there and handed off the backpack. But it was a series of things because, when you're really busy, you can't be as clear as a normal day. So let me try and transition all that to some of our readings. And so we heard about Phoebe. Anybody know Phoebe? Right? But Phoebe's not one of those characters that we all grew up learning about, is she? No. And pretty much that reading is about all we hear from Paul. So she's not, let's just say, a biblical woman that tons and tons have been written about. But I think it's important to recognize that in the first century, she was named at a time when most women aren't named. Her name means radiant. We know she was the minister of a house church. So people gathered at her home to celebrate liturgy, to share the word and share Eucharist. She lived in St Teresa, near the beach, about, I think, 6 to 8 miles from Corinth in Greece, which was a busy seaport city. Her feast day is September 3rd. And in 1969, Pope Gregory the Great's feast was moved to September the 3rd. So Phoebe was displaced. How surprising. But Paul calls her a deacon, right? So she was a benefactor, which means either she was wealthy or she was a gifted fundraiser and community organizer. Either way, she was kind of out of her space in terms of biblical women. She carried the message in the first century, more than 750 miles, So I think about my experience, luckily she didn't have to turn around and go back for her laptop because I don't think electricity was even that common. But think of what it was like, right? Just a woman traveling by boat across the Ionic Sea to carry the message to the people of Rome. Powerful that was a woman, and a woman that in our church we don't even hold up and celebrate. Well, here we do, but so it just made me think, in light of the experience that I've had recently, about how much fragility is part of our humanity. We know that. Think of our own experiences. Sometimes it's like under the spotlight. And maybe that's a message for us to think about today. We often think about Jesus as human and divine. But I don't think we think of ourselves as human, frail, and also sacred, divine. So, in conclusion, I just want to leave you with the idea that we all have our journeys, and our journeys take us to where we are. And whether we like it or not, live into where you are, I think, is the ultimate message today. Remain blessed.